My name is Aidan Sowa, and I'm the CEO, and I own Sowa Marketing Agency along with Velvet Voice PR. And in this show, I'm just going to talk about a bit about my backstory and also about like mindset.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we're about to dive into the entrepreneurial journey of someone who's achieved more by 23 than most people will actually do in a lifetime. Now, Aidan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Good to be on the show.
Absolutely. Well, I must say I'm really excited about this. Do you know at age 24, I don't think I was actually able to write my own name. So I can't wait to see what it is that you have done with your time thus far and obviously share your experiences with our audience today. And for those that are wondering what I'm talking about today, our guest is Aidan Sowa, who is a dynamic force in the business world, who's also transformed his own dreams into a seven-figure reality with the Sowa Marketing Agency. And don't let his edge fool you. I think this guy is as sharp as they come, with a black belt in Taekwondo and also, a very successful business behind him. As I was saying, a lot of us are not able to achieve that in a whole lifetime, and he has done it at age 24. So we're talking about somebody who went from ringing up groceries to actually ringing up success with unmatched customer support and innovative marketing strategies. And if you're ready to learn how to actually turn setbacks into setups for your own success, I think this episode is one for you. Now, Aidan, I could go on and talk about things that I'm not even qualified about. First of all, happy birthday. Now you're 25. What's it been like for you, man?
Yeah, I mean, things have been very interesting along the journey in regards to like we initially started out as like a lead generation more so firm, and then we've really transitioned to like the branding, TV interview, radio interviews, podcast interviews, that type of focus. We're like obsessed in regards to branding, but it's been a journey in terms of everything.
Absolutely. And I mean, just like anything else, it's a journey. But you started all of this at a very young age. Tell us maybe from the time you got fired as a cashier to what you're now doing. What was the actual turning point for you?
I mean, when I got fired as a cashier, it was a very unpleasant experience because for me, I didn't even really want to be doing that job to begin with. So to get fired from a job which I hated already, it was kind of like the ultimate insult to me. I was like, okay, this is going too far. Not only did I find it insulting to be doing that job to begin with, somewhat, but so that point in time, and I decided just to really focus on like figuring out what type of venture. And I saw like a ad basically regards to marketing, and I had a bit of marketing experience due to working with the MIT Enterprise Forum Cambridge. But then I found an ad for like a course. I took that course, and unlike a lot of people who don't even open a course or anything like that, I went through it all like multiple times, like really understanding it. And beyond that, I took full advantage of everything. Like I networked with everyone within that course and stuff. Like so many people in the group didn't even know each other. I created a group within the group, ironically, on WhatsApp and stuff like that. And I communicated with like all the top members. I figured out like who's who and stuff like that. And the people like in that network are still in my network today. So that was very valuable. And that's basically just me taking advantage of my current resources. And then from there, eventually I transitioned more so to the branding side. Kind of the guy who ran the course kind of made that suggestion, like, why don't you kind of focus more so on the branding side now that lead generation is starting to die out during that time during COVID-19. A lot of people were doubtful of like whether they should be spending the money of leads, and people were very uncertain. And so I made that transition more so to the branding side around that time.
Absolutely. And I quite like how, first of all, you really, created an opportunity for yourself where other people, like you say, don't even open courses, but you went and you dove in and you really looked at every nook and cranny. Now, you said you had a bit of marketing experience while you were with the MIT Enterprise Forum in Cambridge. What's that all about?
Yeah, so I mean, I did briefly intern like for around like 7 months. I would basically take the train back and forth every single day to do that. And I would basically learn about like Twitter and stuff like that. I learned a lot about like email marketing, more so with like MailChimp and stuff like that. I don't necessarily use that stuff today, but it further enhances my overall marketing knowledge. And that's what I basically did. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff which I don't really use today, but I still have a knowledge of. Like, for example, event-based marketing. We did a lot of that because MIT Enterprise Forum Cambridge, or it's now called, I think, like eForum or something like that. They rebranded. But at the time, they were doing a lot of event-based marketing, and so I would know how to like really get all the different speakers, all the people who are basically organized and stuff like that. And it was quite interesting looking at their databases of like all these people, thousands of people. They could just send out a simple email of like, "Hey, I want a donation," and people would just throw money at them. So that was an interesting experience.
Absolutely. I think if you work with a live account, it actually puts you and gives you skin in the game. Whereas a lot of people would maybe have done what you did, just go through a course without any real life sort of experience. But this all, moving from MIT to then maybe getting started on your own must have been a little bit fearful. What was that experience like for you?
I mean, initially speaking, I had a lot of self-doubt just because I was initially speaking, thinking, oh, as people just say you can make 10K a month, I didn't really buy it. I wasn't completely sure. And so initially speaking, I basically thought to myself, all right, well, let's just pretend this is true. If this was true, what actions would I actually take as if this was true? And so I basically just acted as if it was true. And I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna commit that next 5, 6 months and just take the actions because I know that 99% of the people in this course will not actually take those actions. The 5% which did become somewhat successful, it's basically narrowed down to like 1%, like literally of the course who are actually still in business today and doing well. But I mean, I basically took that action and acted as if I believed until it actually happened. And then I started making money and I was like, okay, this is real because I've already done it at that point.
Mhm.
But there were hurdles along the way. Like, for example, like my second client was like to do a chargeback. I didn't even know what a chargeback was. That would have bankrupted me. So like little like hurdles like that where I had to basically offer additional services to convince him to not charge back. Like I offered him voicemail drops. She basically sent out voicemails and stuff. He's a realtor, and that generated him a bunch of business. And he was like, "Oh wait, like you just made me a bunch of money. I'm not going to charge back on you. You just made like 15, 20,000. Obviously, that doesn't make any sense to charge back on like $1,000 or $2,000. So there were certain hurdles along that way. And also in my first year of business, I probably got scammed like 40,000. So that was kind of painful as well. So I learned how to really vet people and also how to vet employees as well, who not just contractors, but actual employees, because those certain people who I initially hired. And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs go through that initially where they hire someone and then they regret it. But you have to basically hire bad hires, at least for me, to know who are the good hires. And I hired some people who were very threatening. They claimed all these crazy claims. Like this one lady, she wanted to post things about me in a blog or whatever, claiming I was against I was part of the patriarchy and all these crazy things. I was like, all I hired you is just to do marketing and stuff like that, or to like do sales and stuff like that. It's as simple as that. There's no complicated evil scheme here going on at all. She was sending me like 100 emails like a minute, and that was kind of interesting. So yeah, been an interesting journey.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, with all that happening, it would put a strain on your actual growth. But you mentioned you got scammed 40K. Would you maybe walk us through what was actually happening? What were you buying that's worth $40,000?
A number of different things. So, like Instagram verification at the time was like a big thing. So, I had a couple clients who wanted to do it. There was certain, quote unquote contractors who were claiming they could do it. So, I was like, all right, cool, let's do that. And I also wanted to get verified for myself. So, that lost me a lot of money. Turns out the guy was just had an interesting history. He was going under a fake name. and basically had a history in the past where he was caught selling massive amounts of weed and stuff where he was thrown in jail for a massive amount of time. And it was like a massive thing. He was like smiling as he was going to jail. He had like no guilt at all whatsoever on his face. And then that was
Mm.
just one of his crimes. He had many, many crimes. He had like I even said to him, I said, look at this record list, and it like showed like 20 crimes. I was like, and I basically I got him to pay me back like 60% of the money because I said to him, like, I could literally just bring this up to like a court thing and like you're on parole right now, but this is gonna get you a lot of hot water. If you want to go back to jail, then I can talk to those people, but I'm pretty sure neither of us want that particular outcome. So why don't you just pay me back the money, which I deserve? And I got back around like 60% of that money. That took a lot of work. I collaborated with some people there. We got on like phone calls with him, like many, many times, like 15 calls. And we were just talking about like all these different aspects. So like, oh, so like, do you want all the people on Instagram to know about how you scammed all this money and stuff like that? So there's different ways to really push the lever there, and I think he didn't want to completely ruin his reputation. He was trying to start over and stuff, so that put some pressure on him, and I was able to recoup like 60% of that money. But that probably took like 40 hours of work, so that was not easy.
Absolutely. So people now know not to mess with the Aidan Sowa, because they might just get exposed. But you literally, obviously, that's a learning curve. I mean, each and every one of us go through all of those sort of ups and downs when business. And the best thing about it all is it then creates your sort of backstory, and sometimes people might not recover from that, but you were actually one of the people that recovered from that downfall. Now your agency is now known for obviously delivering impressive results. That's an impressive result in and of itself, getting back your money from a scammer. And you are now also guaranteeing press articles and TV interviews for the people that you work with. So just maybe walk us through some of the strategies that you use that have been most effective in order for you to be able to make such guarantees?
Yeah, so I mean, that just took like a lot of work. Like, I mean, in the past, we used different platforms such as like harrow.com, which is a great site for being able to source like mentions, quoted.com, feature.com, that type of thing. But over time, I've sort of developed relationships with different journalists in specific categories such as technology, business, etc., which have allowed us to be able to guarantee features, both not just on like, article basis, but also TV interviews on the local level and even the national level. We have connections at Fox News, Good Morning America, CNBC, etc., which allow us to be able to guarantee features, not for everyone on the national level because it requires certain criteria and stuff, but we definitely can get people into there, and it's something very possible.
Absolutely. How important is that sort of publicity for a small to medium business or a startup that's just getting started?
I would say it depends on how much revenue they're doing because PR is one of those things that boost your brand in terms of like if you already have a network, you can reach out to your existing network and say, hey, we just got featured, post on social media, send it out to your existing email newsletter, add it to your email signature, perhaps create a blog post about it, etc. But if your network is zero, then it's not going to do a lot unless you run ads to it. I've seen a couple clients do that where they run ads to a local audience using that as like a creative, something like that can work, but basically just magnetizes your reach. Your existing audience gets excited about it. They want to pay more money, refer more business to you, etc. That's where we've seen it to be most useful. And then on the long-term basis, having articles rank on your name increases close ratio. We've also seen businesses sell for more money due to the fact they've been featured, but I wouldn't recommend it to necessarily for a business just getting started because you need to have that network for it to really get the best results.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned a few things, how so many people get onto courses and then they don't do nothing with it. They just leave those courses gathering digital dust on the internet there and go on to Google and write a bad review for something that they didn't even consume. And
Correct.
that's a mindset and a belief system that a lot of people might have. And I know that, at your age, mindset really plays a crucial role to your own success. Now, could you maybe tell us what it is that you know, what sort of belief system does one have to have in order to actually be successful, especially at a young age like yours?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of cliche, but mindset was actually the most valuable part I got out of that course. I know people always like, oh, it's a tactics. Not really. It was more so the mindset of being able to think in terms of 10-year goals and being able to split that up into 1 year weekly goals, being able to split that into daily goals, and then figuring out what to do on a day to day. So that way you know whether you're hitting those yearly goals. That's probably the most useful aspect. And not just thinking in terms of financial, because a lot of people think in terms of financial goals, but also thinking in terms of health, in terms of relationships, all these different aspects of your life, because there's multiple aspects. You could have all the money in the world, but if you have cancer and you're going to die tomorrow, it doesn't do much good for you. So you need to have all of those aspects in terms of everything. So that's how I really was able to do it, because if you want to, let's just say, make 10K a month, you're like, okay, how many recurring clients do I need to get there? This is how I hit that goal. You don't want to just set some crazy target for yourself, have no idea how to hit it, because that's the most guaranteed way to fail. In fact, I think it was like Winston Churchill who basically said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail type of scenario. And I mean, that was very valuable in terms of like really figuring out how to do that. And it's also one of the key things I learned about within that course was discipline. Basically, my mentor basically talked about how motivation's essentially just nonsense. And if you want to run a successful business, you think like the most successful people constantly motivated. That's just not a thing. It's discipline which wins. So basically, consistently doing the same actions every single day, even if you don't feel like doing it. And that's something which is a real mindset shift, because you see most regular people who are not business owners constantly talk about motivation and stuff. You don't often see successful business owners talking about how they felt so motivated to do something. That is just not a thing. It's discipline, which makes like someone really successful in any field.
Absolutely. And obviously, and I thank you so much for, you know, obviously elaborating on that, because so many people just think if I see Aidan's website, I could just copy the words on the website and put it out there, and hopefully something is gonna, you know, clients are gonna beat a path to my online door. Or if I just see somebody doing a podcast, then I will also just go out there and start doing or conducting podcasts and interviewing people, hoping that it works. But there's always something that happens behind the scenes. Now, you've gone on and built a seven-figure business at such a young age, and that's very impressive. I mean, not a lot of people are able to say that about their whole entire lives. Now, you're talking about discipline and, you know, special, you know, qualities or habits. What are some of those, you know, habits or qualities that somebody really needs to possess in order for them to be able to, you know, reach the heights that you've reached?
I would say the first thing is identify what things are the most negative things, like in terms of your daily habits, which you do, what things are actually walking to your goals, and writing them down, like thinking about it. Like I spent like a solid like 7 hours just writing down all the things in my life, which were basically not contributing to my goals. And I was like, okay, eliminate that, eliminate this. And I was like, now what are some positive things I can replace those with, which actually reach towards my goals? And I eventually realized I had a whole lot of garbage, which was not working towards my life. And I was like, how many hours is this costing me? And it was a lot of garbage. It was, and that's quite normal actually at that level. It's a complete mindset shift from employee to business owner. It's a big mindset shift. And employees typically think like, oh, my shift's over, I'm done and stuff. Business owners, if you get a message at 7, 8 o'clock or whatever that you know, a lead or whoever wants to pay you like 20,000, you're going to answer that call. Or for example, if someone wants to get us upset or something, you're going to take that call and fix the situation. So it's a big mindset shift. Sometimes people get into business thinking for like the point of view of time freedom. That comes later once you have like employees and stuff like that. You've delegated most of the tasks and stuff. But initially speaking, most entrepreneurs are working like 70 plus hours a week. And that's just normal because you have to, you're basically handling everything from like accounting to taxes, all these different things. And you don't see most of those gurus talking about that, like the taxes and stuff like that. You're going to be doing cat taxes, or you're going to be keeping all these like different deductions and stuff like that. They don't talk about these things because that's just not cool. But the reality is you got to do all this stuff. You got to deal with difficult customers being like very unreasonable sometimes. So mastering each individual aspect and creating systems, like that's that next level. So one is first getting sales and like being able to generate revenue, but then creating systems around that. Like, how does this work into the systems? Creating like a Google Drive in regards to each one of those systems, whether it's sales, whether it's like customer management, and then outsourcing that. Like, oh, now I have like a customer success person who handles like customers. This is exactly how to do it. So you could basically replace yourself. They could just come in with like a plug and play playbook and just basically be like, this is do this, do this, do that. And then the customer will be happy and want to retain and potentially buy more stuff. And you need to have systems for all aspects. I almost treat like customer retention very similar to sales. Like you need to have very clear things like setting expectations. All those things are very similar. Even when it comes to like recruitment, I treat recruiting people as almost similar to a sales process. Like I have systems in place even for that. So like this is how to hire like someone and stuff like that. Set things which they need to meet and stuff like that. You know, second call, third call types of things to look for, etc. So being able to treat it like a funnel is also a mindset shift, which I picked up on much later on. In the past, originally when I was hiring, I would say I made a lot of mistakes because I would just hire someone based off of like, oh, I think this person has like an interesting perspective or something silly like that, rather than necessarily looking at like what is this person's actual credentials and stuff in terms of like have they ever done sales in their life. If they've never done any sales in their life, most likely from my experience, they oftentimes aren't an extraordinary salesperson. I've yet to see an exception to that rule. I've hired a lot of non-sales people basically, and they haven't worked out at all.
Oh, absolutely. Because how you do anything is how you do everything. And like you say, it is quite a mindset shift. But, looking at your past, you've had all that sort of prior experience, especially when it comes to systems. I mean, the one place where people should go to and learn how systems actually work is a place like McDonald's. And you've had, a fair share of your past, in there. Now, your past work also as a cashier and your current success seems to be very much worlds apart. But if you really look at it, you were dealing with people, you were dealing with systems, and you were dealing with time management and productivity only in different sort of, roles and capacities. Now, do you see maybe any connections in the work that you did prior to what it is that you're now doing, which influences you to run your business as you do today?
I mean, I would definitely say like there's stuff to respect in large businesses for sure because they have like the most solid systems. Like they could just bring in like a franchisee or whatever and be like, here, do this, do that. So I definitely have respect for large organizations which have that set up in place. A lot of people, I think, quite foolishly look down on some small, like large businesses, be like, oh, they're old, they move slowly and stuff like that. Yeah, they may be slow sometimes in terms of making like some big decisions, but at the end of the day, they've got systems which you don't have, and that's the reason why they're leading the field. And if you want to be able to get up to that level, you're going to need to have systems too. So I would definitely say the systems part, I would say is definitely a thing. I mean, I do believe that certain aspects were kind of a little bit silly from my point of view, but overall, I would say the systems is what I can definitely respect.
Absolutely. So just in case somebody's trying to get started on their business and they're probably in there sweating in McDonald's and not seeing the end in sight, what sort of advice would you give that sort of a person who is immersed in a system that's already working, but they've got dreams of their own?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably just take that dive into it, but not expect instant success because that's what, unfortunately, a lot of courses are promising people. They're promising them make 100K or whatever in 3 months and just ridiculous claims. There's a lot of new business models. Another big mistake I would say from entrepreneurs is the idea of shiny object syndrome. I see that a lot with new entrepreneurs. I was talking to like one guy and he's like, oh, I might try YouTube automation. Next day he's trying something else like Shopify and all these crazy things. And they never succeed in anything. It becomes like, and sometimes they're trying even worse, multiple business ideas at the same exact time. So it's like a pizza, I always like to describe in terms of focus. It's split focus, and you're going in multiple different directions. So you're never going to be good at that. That makes no logical sense. And you become extremely good at one thing and then potentially explore future business ideas down the line. But definitely do not do multiple things at once. And that applies to everything. In regards to like outreach, you want to, if you're doing Facebook ads, become extremely good at Facebook ads. Don't do Facebook ads and Google ads and TikTok ads all at the same time. That's just a recipe for disaster. So I would say that's the number one thing. I would also look into like understanding taxes. That's another thing. Being able to understand how that works, because that's important. Because I've talked to people their first year of business, I'm like, did you even file taxes? And unfortunately, the answer more often than not is like 70% of the time is no, they didn't file taxes because they're like, oh, I was too hard, I just didn't do it. I was like, you can get audited for that. So that's a big mistake, which I'm seeing a lot of entrepreneurs make. And I would say the biggest is just giving up way too early. They give up after 3 months or whatever because they just think it quote unquote doesn't work and it's a scam or something like that. And yeah, I would just say that's a limiting belief.
Absolutely. Now, if somebody is inspired by your journey so far and would like to maybe get started in finding out how you can help them, or how you can support them, what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, they can reach over Instagram at the Aidan Sowa to be able to reach out to me directly. I mean, they can also reach out to me over LinkedIn. I'm also like, Aidan Sowa there, like on LinkedIn. Those are probably some of the best ways. And then there's also like the velvetvoicepo.com website and the sowaagency.co website. Those are all great ways to reach me because I understand not everyone has LinkedIn and Instagram, though most people do.
Absolutely. Now, what sort of people do you also work with, just so that people know, if you're the perfect fit for them?
I mean, typically speaking, what I would recommend if someone were to reach out to me, that they'd be at least making some money at that point. I would recommend at least $10,000 a month in revenue at the very least. Reason why I say that is because I'm a strong believer that you need to have sales in line, like certain things, fundamentals set in place. Before PR really makes a lot of sense because it will add fuel to the fire. But if there's no fire to begin with, it doesn't make much sense.
Absolutely. It actually makes the wood wet, and it's not just gonna absolutely make any sense there. Now, Aidan, I mean, obviously you're still learning, and obviously you're still growing, and the world is just your oyster. What's next? What can we expect from you moving forward?
I mean, moving forward, I mean, I'm building a data company, so that's one of my big plans in terms of overall growth. I mean, I'm building it with one of my business partners. We're basically aiming to compete with some of the larger companies, such as like ZoomInfo, Apollo, etc., like which are pretty large, but we have some clear set plans, which I plan to grow that company to great length, but also continuing to expand on the PR side. I think we're going to get more and more connections down the line. And I mean, just continue to build out a team who will be able to eventually handle more and more roles. Like I plan on hiring like a CFO and all these different aspects down the line to be able to handle more things. So I mean, my goal is to be able to transition away from just, having like, 10 people or whatever to being a larger organization and being able to have like true systems in place. That's the ultimate goal.
Absolutely. Well, I can't thank you enough for the time that we've spent on the call today. You just showed us that age is just nothing but a number when it actually comes to achieving success and making a difference. And, so many people just stop at the first hurdle. You didn't stop when somebody, when you got fired. You didn't stop when you got scammed. And now you're not even stopping with regards to the way you're growing your business. So thank you so much for the journey that you're on. And also thank you for sharing that with us today.
Yeah, no problem.
Absolutely. And for those that are watching, if today's conversation inspired you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And also, I encourage you to share this episode with someone who's maybe looking to get started in their own business, or they are, as Aidan says, just chasing shiny objects or going from course to course and not actually finding their own direction. Because if you follow one course, you will definitely be successful. So you need to focus on one thing, and that one thing will actually then pay off eventually. And if you missed anything from this episode, don't forget to just rewatch this episode in and of itself, because there's always more to learn when it comes to building a business that's both profitable and enjoyable. Until next time, stay prosperous and keep subscribed to the Online Prosperity Show. Bye for now.